Sunny, and I wanted to discuss the 12 links of interdependent origination, or in Sanskrit, the 12 Nidanas. Is anybody familiar with it at all? Good. You can help me. And did anybody read chapter 27? Great.
I've read it, but not
recently.
Yeah.
I want to go around the room and introduce.
Yeah, let's go around and everybody say their name. So I'm Sunny.
Monica.
Dick, Bob, Howard, Larry,
Miranda.
Dominique.
Jacqueline. Jan. Pam. Marilyn.
Rachel.
Jane.
Karen.
Thank you. I appreciate all the help. I can use it now. So, I find this teaching for myself a really great formula for off the cushion and a way to regulate, basically, or, really get myself in check. It's the foundation of Buddhism. It's the 12 Nidanas, and being a visual person, it was an illustration that was created, it was a teaching, and then there was an illustration and a chart, which I'll pass out for everybody to have. And it's basically the wheel of suffering. And there's two sides to it, so when you get your handout, I'll wait. You can look on both sides, or 2 pages. This chart was created to illustrate the 12 Nidanas, which is a Sanskrit term. And on the second page, you'll see the 2 aspects of interdependent co-arising. So it's like there's a shadow side and a light side, and it's when conditioned by deluded mind and when conditioned by true mind. And actually, there's some wonderful charts in the book. Thich Nhat Hanh has listed a chart vertically with some descriptives, if you want to read more about these in detail. And on the second page, he does it in concentric circles, and the deluded mind is in the center, and the true mind is surrounding the deluded mind. It's actually quite brilliant, and it's really a teaching for life. There's a lot to study on the 12 Nidanas for sure, I think. So this drawing was created. I'm going to begin with page 221. So I'm going to read a little bit out of the book and then share from my studies that I've pulled together. A co-arising, cause and effect co-arise, and everything is a result of multiple causes and conditions. And if anybody ever tried to answer the koan, what came first, the chicken or the egg, Thich Nhat Hanh does it in the book. He says the egg is in the chicken and the chicken is in the egg. Chicken and egg arise in mutual dependence. Neither is independent. Independent co-arising goes beyond our concepts of time and space. The one contains the all. And this can be described also as Indra's net, or like a Mobius. So there's nothing really linear within the chart. All elements are sort of interdispersed and interwoven. If we gain the wisdom to break the chain, we gain the ability to bring an end to our suffering. Basically, it deals with the world as we experience it. So one thing can lead to another. That's kind of the Mobius piece. And you can choose any of the links as a starting point. Because they're intertwined and dependent on each other, they arise together as links of a chain. If we gain the wisdom to break the chain, we gain the ability to bring an end to our suffering. So tonight I wanted to focus on, it's such a broad subject, I thought as an introduction, we could really look at and break into small groups and study the link of ignorance, which leads into the link of karma. And that's sort of, even though there is no beginning on the chart, you'll see it does start at the top, and I'll describe them. So you can see the link, the first link at the top on the right. It's a vidya in English, and that's ignorance, and it's portrayed by an image of a blind person who's blundering forward, unable to see where she's going. So ignorance is blindness, not seeing. It's a lack of insight into the true nature of mind, which is open, spacious, and unbiased. And you'll see also on this chart, there's at the top is a vidya, and then when it's true mind, it's vidya, clear understanding, without obstruction. The drawing portrays how ignorance obscures us from seeing what is already here. And another quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, if I might. Ignorance is avidya, the lack of light. Vidya is understanding or wisdom. The presence of light means the absence of darkness. The presence of day means the absence of night. The presence of ignorance means the absence of understanding. The Buddha said, when ignorance comes to an end, understanding arises. I hope you're getting that. So the second link that I want us to go through together is samskara in Sanskrit. And it's illustrated by a man gathering fruit in a jungle, or in this instance, you can see it's a potter at work. This illustrates volitional actions, the will to live, which is known as karma formation. Here the chain reaction begins. So volitional actions instill patterns in the mind. We get caught up in these habitual behaviors that develop into karmic seeds in our consciousness.
Sunny, why are they called links?
I don't know that. They're interconnected. I think that could be a large piece of it. That they're all interconnected together, and that's what links are. Yeah, it might be. I think it's that simple. So ignorance feeds into this blundering of blindness, feeds into volitional action, basically. It's kind of like cause and effect. And one more short quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. So his statement on volitional action, the second link is volitional action, samskara, also translated as formations, impulses, motivating energy, karma formations, or the will to cling to being. When we have a lack of understanding, anger, irritation, or hatred can even arise. So this coarse level of ignorance has to do with dualistic and solidified non-recognition of the open state. You know, specifically, we don't know the Four Noble Truths: suffering, the causes of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the true path. We're ignorant of how our ignorance causes suffering. So we're not even aware. It's like what the fish in the water doesn't know the water. The problem is that most people do not know what root of suffering is, which perpetuates itself over and over again. Our habitual behavior tends to strengthen, and as we get older, we get more and more set in our ways. So I'm going to share an example of ignorance expresses itself as a habitual pattern in my own life, how it repeats over and over again. So I have a tendency to get hooked by my inner dialogue, which, especially when I feel bullied or left out, it's a big one for me. And within moments, I can get very ignorant. It's like, boom, you know, it's this automatic, which quickly moves into karmic action. Hi, Karen. I say things to myself and do things that become more dualistic and reified. It's like this sort of conversation that starts to, that's the action. It's like this internal thing that starts. In other words, the chain starts and gets more solid. The antidote for ignorance when I'm caught up in my polarizing, concretized thoughts is to pause between ignorance and volitional action. That's when I'm fortunate. I can do that. I do this by sensing into it with loving kindness, bringing myself into the present moment and giving, and all of a sudden there's a spaciousness, when I just stop and sense into that. I know it, I know the voice now. This is known as the pause practice. I find great spaciousness when I ask myself, this was a realization I had very recently. I thought, do I want to be right or do I want to be free? And I just went, wow, the voice, at that point, it was like logic just, overran that concretized mind that goes into the spin, It's like, yes, thank you. So what I want us to do is break into small groups and recall some aspects of ourselves, how we get caught in the habitual patterns of ignorance. And it shows up, all different ways for us, And once we have a chance to go around and share, I'd like to have everyone take a moment then and do a next round and share our thoughts about how we work to practice interrupting these storylines and volitional action even in order to transform delusion into a path of clear understanding. Does that make sense?
I'm not quite getting
Okay.
what your definition of ignorance is.
Well, I actually printed out another, where did I put it? On ignorance, because I wondered if it would be, it is, what is ignorance? That's a good question. So I
can define it in a broader scope, but on a day-to-day, when am I falling into ignorance? I don't know what that
So
is.
in the heart of the Buddhist teachings and in many of the teachings, they talk about just not being aware of the Four Noble Truths. But I thought that maybe I should bring something else, like what is ignorance? I had that question too, like how does it show up? So this is it's Tibetan, but it's from Khenchen Thrangu Rinpoche. I think I'm saying that right. The first root of ignorance means that by ignoring the true nature of phenomena, we project things which do not exist. It's our projections. We are deluded, we're confused. Although there's no self, we're under the illusion that a self exists. Although everything is impermanent, we incorrectly project permanence. That's the reification, or the concretized thoughts onto everything. We also believe that something such as material possessions will bring happiness when in fact they don't. I need the, our ignorance gives rise to confusion, and because of confusion, our samsaric world is generated. All the ways we have of relating to things are generated from the root causes of ignorance. And actually, if you read the chapter, he talks about ignorance being interspersed through the whole 12 links, or the other 11 links. But in a way, this is what Rinpoche says, this is good news, because it means that samsara and its suffering are easy to get rid of. I don't know if I would say get rid of, but this is how he wrote that. I would embrace it. I would become aware of it. If samsara and suffering were real and solid, and not just due to the confusion of our own mind, then they'd be very hard, almost impossible to get rid of. As it is, because the root cause of suffering and samsara is the confusion and ignorance of our mind, if we remove that delusion and ignorance, the very root of samsara and suffering can be eliminated, is how he put it, but it just dissolves. It's like, wow, I've been hanging on to that. That's where I said, do I want to be right or do I want to be liberated? It's like, wow, no, I don't think I want to hang on to this belief.
So, Sunny, where does karma come into this?
The karma formation is between the pause. Like if you're not pausing, it immediately moves into volitional action. And volitional action can be in the mind. Like, oh gosh, why is she asking me that question? I mean, I'm just saying that right now as an idea. And then I go, oh, that Karen, she's always asking me. Then I could move into a whole little spin-off. And that's the storyline, And then we start to generate a whole... And then I'm going to call Jane on the phone. God, that Karen, she's always asking me questions. Well, so then volitional
action part?
the karma formation, so it starts in the mind. And then we get to reify it. It becomes more concretized, like, oh God, why is Karen asking me? I'm going to call Miranda on the phone. I'm going to tell her, Karen's asking me too many questions. What the hell's wrong with her? I mean, I'm just trying to make up
We're good
pills.
friends.
No, you're
We are good friends.
Sunny, you're doing a great job.
Oh,
It's
good.
very clear. Thanks.
So that's kind of what, and it's interesting because when you read this book, it's really dense, and I think I spent many, many hours trying to distill it down. And but I know for myself, as I'm getting to know myself, and especially doing the trauma resiliency work, coming home to myself is more important than being right. And opening my heart to my friends. We think about John's passing. Why are we hanging on to these things that keep us separate and preified and dualistic? It's like time to give it up. And that's where this study is so beautiful for me, because it's a formula off the cushion that I can actually practice, and on the cushion, but it's harder because my mind likes to go crazy. But
So our two key questions when we break up to small groups are,
the first will be to recall some aspects of yourself and how you get caught in the habitual pattern of ignorance. And then I'm very happy to repeat, the second question, but it will be to have everyone take a moment in this round and share our thoughts about how we work to practice interrupting these stories. What are the solutions? Whether it's pinching your skin, whatever. Different ways that we can just sort of interrupt, and come back to the truth. So that's what we'll do.